Okay, I'm going to go through this section rather quickly because it's just a lot of reading. There's not a lot of math involved. So, first off, we're looking at conditional statements. Conditional statements are written in the form of if and then. Um, we can use a symbol with the arrow, which is shown here, um, just to see how it works. All birds have feathers. So if we want to write it as a conditional statement, we're going to write it if an animal is a bird, then it has feathers. So you can work on those. The opposite is called a negation. So it's the opposite of an original statement. So we write it. If you look at the ball is red, the ball is not red, it would be a negation. And you can do it the same way. If the cat is not black, the negation would be the cat is black. So different ways we can represent things. So we're going to look at related conditionals. The converse just switches the if and the then. So the converse, if you have if P then Q, then the converse would be if Q then P. The inverse is going to negate both of the hypothesis and the conclusion. So you would have if not P, then not Q. And remember that negate you can symbolize with the wavy line. The contrapositive, not only are you going to negate, you're going to switch the hypothesis and the conclusion. So you would have if not Q, then not P, and so forth. I'll let you look through the examples. You can see a conditional, converse, inverse, contrapositive, but and talk about what is true and not true. Finally, we come to what is a biconditional statement. Uh, so when a conditional statement and its converse are both true, then you can write a biconditional statement. All right. So if we look at the two things here, if two lines form a right angle, they are perpendicular lines. And the converse says if you have two lines that are perpendicular, if two lines are perpendicular, then they interact to form a right angle. So the biconditional statement is the two lines intersect to form a right angle if and only if they are perpendicular lines. Section 2.2 gets into using inductive and deductive reasoning. So inductive reasoning just looks for a pattern, something happening. Um, it doesn't involve any rules or anything like that. So if you look at the visual pattern of this, you notice that the first figure is divided into two parts. The second figure is divided into four parts. The third figure is divided into six parts. So what we're doing is we're multiplying the figure number by 2 to get the number of parts. So then the fourth figure would be divided into 8 parts. And then it's also shading just to the left above the center. So one of the things we're looking at is making and testing a conjecture. A person notices that if you add 3 consecutive numbers together, you can find the same answer by multiplying the middle number by 3. And that makes sense because if you divide the total by 3, you would get the average, which would be the middle number, because the first number is 1 less and the second is 1 more. A counterexample is something that is going to um, make a conjecture not true or false. So someone makes a conjecture that if you add two numbers together, the sum is always greater than the number, or the sum of two numbers is always greater than the number. Well, if you add two negatives together, then the sum is actually less than the first negative number. Deductive reasoning we're going to use a lot is based on facts, deductions, properties, and laws. So what we're looking at in geometry is if we know that two segments have the same length, then we also can use that to say that they are congruent, meaning they're the same. So you can use that to do a conclusion. So the second is a law of syllogism. I don't know if that's how you say it, but if you are going to say that x squared is less than 25, then x squared is less than 20. As long as you're using numbers, you can do that. So if x is less than 5, then x squared is going to be less than 25. You can write a statement like that. If a polygon is regular, then the angles in the interior polygon are congruent. If a polygon is regular, then the sides are congruent. And so you basically have different conclusions based on what happens, even though you have the same conjecture. So where might you use inductive and deductive reasoning? If each time Monica kicks the ball up in the air, it returns to the ground. So noticing that pattern, the next time Monica kicks the ball up in the air, it will return to the ground. That is a form of inductive reasoning. You notice the pattern. If you have a statement that all reptiles are cold-blooded and parrots are not cold-blooded, then you can tell that someone's parrot is not a reptile, and that is the use of deductive reasoning. The assignment is going to be more of choosing which reasoning or some steps like that. It's a lot to think about, but again, this is just some thought process to go through as we build on the rest of our geometry class.